I didn't kill her physically, but in the back of my mind, she died. And I didn't even cry, not a single tear. In the back of my mind, but that you think that I'm gonna say you died, but I say I killed you. So it's not like the thought of her is gone by itself was something that she did, it was something that I decided to do. And I killed her in the back of my mind.
Body found inside the trunk of an abandoned Tesla registered with the singer David has been identified as 15-year-old Celeste Rivas.
On the surface, it looked like the story of a rising star living the dream. But behind the headlines, investigators say a secret relationship, hidden for years, was unraveling in ways no one outside could see. By the time police began piecing together what had happened, one young life was gone, a family was searching for answers, and a criminal case would expose allegations that shocked both the music industry and the public. As of August 4, 2026, many questions remain unanswered, but the evidence presented in court has revealed a deeply disturbing timeline. If you're new here, subscribe for carefully researched true crime documentaries that separate verified facts from speculation. And as you watch, I'd like you to ask yourself one question: when does a public image stop reflecting reality? For millions of fans around the world, D4vd represented one of music's fastest-rising stars. His songs dominated streaming platforms. His career seemed unstoppable. Every new release attracted millions of listeners, and his future appeared brighter than ever. But according to prosecutors, while the public watched a promising young artist build an international career, another story was unfolding almost entirely out of sight. A story that investigators say remained hidden for years. A story centered on one name: Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Long before investigators would search homes, examine digital records, and present evidence inside a Los Angeles courtroom, Celeste was simply a teenager with dreams, family, and a future that those closest to her believed was only beginning. Today, that future has become the center of one of California's most closely watched criminal cases. According to prosecutors, Burke and Celeste first came into contact years before investigators allege their relationship became sexual. Exactly how that relationship evolved is now one of the central issues before the court. During the preliminary hearing, prosecutors introduced evidence they say demonstrates the relationship continued over an extended period, while Burke's music career expanded rapidly. One document stood out: a signed parental consent form allowing Celeste to travel internationally with Burke to London in 2024. Investigators also testified about other trips involving Las Vegas and Houston, presenting them as pieces of a much larger timeline they have spent months reconstructing. For prosecutors, those trips help establish the history between the two. For the defense, they do not prove the crimes alleged. As investigators continued presenting evidence, another question that had spread rapidly across social media was finally addressed. Was Celeste pregnant when she died? For weeks, confusion surrounded amendments made to her death certificate. Online speculation grew as conflicting reports circulated. During the preliminary hearing, however, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office clarified that Celeste Rivas Hernandez was not pregnant at the time of her death. Prosecutors did state that evidence suggested she allegedly became pregnant in 2023 and later underwent an abortion in January 2024 when she was 13 years old. Those allegations form part of the prosecution's broader narrative, but are separate from the circumstances surrounding her death. Even with that clarification, many of the case's most difficult questions remained unanswered. Investigators then turned the court's attention toward digital evidence. According to testimony, text messages exchanged between Burke and Celeste reflected a relationship prosecutors describe as becoming increasingly strained. They allege Celeste confronted Burke over alleged infidelity and threatened to expose aspects of their relationship. The prosecution argues those conversations reveal a possible motive. Specifically, they contend Burke feared public disclosure could damage both his reputation and his rapidly growing music career. The defense sees those same messages differently. Burke's attorneys argue prosecutors are interpreting emotional conversations through the lens of hindsight, and that private disagreements do not establish criminal intent. As the hearing continued, the focus shifted from phones to physical evidence. Detectives described extensive forensic examinations involving Burke's former residence, his vehicle, and several locations connected to the investigation. Investigators testified that blood allegedly linked to Celeste was recovered inside Burke's former home. They also presented digital location data they say places Burke's phone and vehicle near locations considered important to the investigation. Another discovery attracted significant attention. Investigators recovered Celeste's passport card from a remote area identified during the investigation. Prosecutors argue the location and recovery of that item support the sequence of events they intend to present at trial. But each piece of evidence was met with challenges from the defense. Burke's attorneys questioned aspects of the forensic investigation, arguing investigators did not perform DNA testing on every potentially relevant object recovered from the residence. They also pointed to testimony indicating the medical examiner could not entirely exclude every alternative explanation concerning the fatal injuries. To the defense, those unanswered questions create reasonable doubt. To prosecutors, the combined evidence tells one consistent story. That disagreement became the defining feature of the preliminary hearing. After listening to 5 days of testimony, reviewing forensic findings, digital evidence, investigative timelines, and witness statements, the judge faced an important legal question. Not whether Burke was guilty, but whether prosecutors had presented enough evidence for the case to move forward. The answer was yes. The court ruled there was sufficient probable cause for the case to proceed toward trial. Legally, that ruling is significant but limited. It does not determine guilt, nor does it predict the outcome of a future jury trial. It simply means prosecutors presented enough evidence for the judicial process to continue. Burke remains in custody without bail. He has pleaded not guilty to charges including first-degree murder, continuous sexual abuse of a child under 14, and unlawful mutilation of human remains. His arraignment is scheduled for August 31, 2026, while prosecutors continue deciding whether they will seek the death penalty. District Attorney Nathan Hochman has stated that the evidence presented during the preliminary hearing represents only part of what investigators have collected. If this case reaches trial, jurors may hear substantially more evidence than what has been disclosed publicly so far. For Celeste Rivas Hernandez's family, every court appearance represents another painful chapter in a search for answers. For Burke, the courtroom is where he continues to maintain his innocence. And for the public, the case has become a reminder of how quickly admiration can give way to scrutiny when serious criminal allegations emerge. But perhaps the most important lesson is this. The loudest conversations often happen outside the courtroom, across social media, podcasts, headlines, and comment sections. Yet none of those places will decide this case. Only a courtroom will. Only admissible evidence will. Only a jury will. As of today, many of the most important questions remain unresolved. What happened during the final days of Celeste Rivas Hernandez's life? Will prosecutors prove that every piece of evidence fits together beyond a reasonable doubt? Or will the defense persuade jurors that critical gaps remain in the state's case? Those answers have yet to be written. And until that verdict is delivered, this story remains suspended between accusation and proof, between what investigators believe happened and what the law ultimately concludes happened. If you followed this case from the beginning, I'd like to hear your thoughts. What part of the evidence presented so far do you believe will have the greatest impact at trial? Share your perspective respectfully in the comments below. If you found this documentary informative, consider leaving a like, subscribing, and turning on notifications so you don't miss future updates as this case continues to unfold. Because in true crime, the most important chapter is often the one that hasn't happened yet.